The Clay and the Silence. A Hawaiian sumo's journey from the ring to the monastery. Daihonzan Eiheiji. Episode 1. The Ring is a World. I grew up with the Pacific as my first teacher. In anae, the ocean teaches rhythm, not by lecture, but by push and pull. You learn to stance your feet when the wave arrives. You learn that balance is breath. My tutu cane called it ha, the breath that sits in your belly, that tells you when to go and when to wait. I wasn't the first boy from Hawaii to chase sumo across the water, and I knew their names like I knew the trade winds: Takamiyama, Konishiki, Akebono, Musashimaru, each a proof that a body from our islands could fit inside an art older than our monarchs, older even than the lines tattooed on my uncle's knees. But their stories were myths. Until one afternoon, a former wrestler, an oyakata from a small Tokyo stable, watched me drive a tackling sled at a high school field and said, "Kid, you hit like a sumotori. You ever think about Japan?" 2 months later, airport glass made the sky look like a polished stone, and a man in a navy suit held a hand-lettered sign that said, "Kioni Kalama." He would be my tsukebito one day if I climbed high enough to earn attendance. For now he was a stable helper with a driver's license and a gift for not talking. We slid onto the Shuto Expressway, Tokyo's ribs flashing past. Somewhere beyond the skyline sat the Kokugikan, the sumo cathedral with a green roof and square shoulders. "Ryogoku," the driver said. "You'll smell chanko." He wasn't kidding. The district breathed stew. Chicken, cabbage, daikon, ginger, soy. Perfuming alleys around the stables. Boys with shaved crowns and long side hair hurried in wooden sandals. The elders, sekitori, wore silk yukata and moved like their steps had already been counted by history. They gave me a cotton practice belt, not silk. A sekitori gets silk for bouts. The rest of us wrap in thick cotton that leaves diagonal ridges across the belly when you unwind it. A senior showed me to fold and refold, to pass the long tail around the hips, to tuck it flat so a grip would be something I could feel coming. "Not too tight," he said, tugging the knot. "If you choke your hips, they forget how to talk to your feet." Etiquette became my first stance. You bow at thresholds. You bow to photographs of retired champions. You bow to a broom if an elder touches it. Itadakimasu before you eat. Gochiso-sama after. The first week, I bowed so much my lower back whined. My tongue learned to shape arigato without my accent, smudging it like wet ink. The pecking order was visible in small objects. Who got a thicker futon? Whose laundry was folded by whom? Who fished the choicest thighs from the chanko pot? You don't complain. You learn to be small until the ring is the only place you're allowed to be large. I watched the Yobidashi build a ring for a regional tour in a school gym. They carried packed clay, tamped it with mallets, sighted along the surface like carpenters. They set the straw bales, tawara, to mark a circle 4.55 meters across, a country that fits under one roof. Buckets and ladles waited for salt. A squared canopy evoked a shrine roof, the tsurian. When they finished, one man stood back and exhaled like a fisherman after knotting his last net. "Now we can begin to take this apart," he said, smiling. "Even rings are temporary. Training stripped me down. We lined by rank. I was last. The captain called for shiko, 100 stamps, hips low, back a mast. Suriashi sliding steps followed, thighs whispering, arms slammed into the teppo pole, palms stung, elbows locked, shoulders learned to be hinges, then butsukari. A senior drove into my chest with his forehead planted on my sternum, while I absorbed and returned him, step by heavy step, to center. "Again," he said. My lungs asked questions my pride could not answer. The clay is indifferent to biography. On the stable TV, the elders replayed the Hawaiians who came before me. Takamiyama's grin big as noon. Konishiki's tsupari thrusts like a storm. Akebono's frame blotting out light, Musashimaru's patience that looked like laziness, until the throw came and you realized stillness had been a weapon. Don't copy, the Oyakata warned. Learn the reason under what they do. The dohyō itself is a world, clay and rope, built by hand before each tournament and crowned with that shrine roof canopy as if the gods lean in to watch. The bales mark the edge of life. Step out, brush down, you lose. In the center, 2 white lines, shikiri-sen, tell you where to crouch for the charge, the tachiai. There's meaning in every gesture. The salt we cast to purify. The shiko foot stamps to press demons down. The clap of hands to show we carry no weapons. Ritual, yes, but nothing empty. Each pulls your attention through the eye of a needle. The first month, my body learned new verbs, matawari, splits that feel like a small death, shiko, stamp and breathe, teppo, palms to wood until my forearms hummed, butsukari, take force, give it back. I couldn't hide in bulk. Sumo finds your spine and measures it. On Sundays our hour to wander took me to the Sumida River, where old men cast lines eerie and still. A monk sometimes stood there in grey robes, bowl in hand, not begging but receiving. He'd nod when I bowed. The second time, he pointed at my shoulders and said, in slow Japanese, "You carry stones here," and tapped the place between my scapulae. "Breathe in your belly." "I do," I answered. "Then breathe wider," he said, and laughed like it wasn't a riddle. They gave me a shikona, a ring name, after I survived my first week without crying. The Oyakata called me into his tatami office, where the air smelled of cedar and hair oil. He glanced at my application, Keone Kalama, Hawaii, and wrote 3 characters with a brush. Haishin, Kaishin, Sea Heart. "Can you carry it?" he asked, not looking up. "I'll try." "Don't try," he said. "Just do." In sumo, trying means you didn't commit at tachiai. My first impression of salt was its chill. I learned not to fling it as theatre, but to cast it as a small vow. I am entering a sacred space. I will not be careless with my violence. In the locker room, a crooked-fingered masseur kneaded lactic acid out of my hamstrings until I whimpered. "Don't be heroic," he said. "Heroic men tear. Wise men yield. I wanted both. The ring would teach me to choose." Language found me in the evenings. A junior named Kenta taught me Akita proverbs. "Fall 7 times, stand 8, he said, an old chestnut we used almost sarcastically. My gift back was pidgin jokes I had no business translating. He laughed anyway. "You speak Japanese in the morning and Hawaiian at night," he said. "Maybe that's why you breathe different." My debut at the bottom bracket came with a stomach like a fist. The yobidashi sang my name and it flew above me like a bird. I stepped in, clapped, cast salt, squatted. Across from me, a kid twitched his fingers, then set his fists. I set mine. The gyoji's fan hung in the air like a verdict. We launched. We made a mess, grips high and ugly, feet slapping indecently near the bales. I won with a clumsy yorikiri force-out. The bow from the referee afterward felt like a diploma I hadn't earned. Life in the stable is a staircase. At the bottom, you wash upper men's mawashi and ladle their stew. At the top, the sekitori have silk for bouts, and attendants to dress their top knots. Being told to scrub the bath wasn't punishment, it was inclusion. A sekitori handed me his hair oil and comb to clean. "Don't drop the comb," he said. The scent of benzuke oil haunted my fingers. Later, he tossed me his laundry with a grunt that meant thanks. Sumo talks in grunts. Back then, sitting still wasn't religion, it was triage. At night, I faced a wall on a folded blanket, hands on thighs, mouth closed, breath dropping into place. Minutes became an hour. The quiet, polished later moments, the slap of palms on clay, steam rising from stew, the bell at the neighborhood temple. I didn't know this was zazen. I only knew it kept me from exploding. My first Tokyo tournament, I went 4-3 in Jonokuchi. The oyakata nodded once, as if I'd remembered to lock a door. In Osaka, 6-1. By Nagoya, I moved with a steadier center. I wasn't strong yet, but my feet didn't lie. The monk by the river vanished for a season. The river braided itself toward the sea without him. Hunger stayed. A senior named Mizuta cornered me by the storage room. "You think you're special because you're from Hawaii?" he asked, all smile and no eyes. "No, senpai. You don't eat second bowl until I say." "Understood." He kept my bowls lean that month. Resentment rolls you up like old tatami and stashes you in the rafters. Breath keeps you human. I climbed. Jonodan, Sandam, Makushita. Steady stones in a wall. Sundays, I wrote my mother, in a mix of English and Hawaiian. "Ma, the rice comes in sacks related to our hurricane sandbags. I'm learning to breathe through my heels. I'm eating more cabbage than any kalama in history. I didn't write. I'm afraid I'll be swallowed by the place I love." Episode 2. Breath in the Clay. It took 2 years to reach Juryo. Salary changed everything. A private room with a door, a formal kimono outside, juniors to carry my bag and draw my bath. The responsibility felt heavier than privilege. "Now your laziness is expensive," the oyakata said. He assigned 2 tsukebito. The younger hovered like a hummingbird. The older watched with the patience of a rock. "Don't indulge," the rock advised. "A man who lets himself be carried forgets how to walk." Sponsor banners circled the ring before certain bouts, silk flags parading like a festival. After, the gyoji handed kensho envelopes. The stable took its share. What remained went partly to savings, partly to the chanko pot for everyone. "Money is noise," the rock said. "Hear it during shikiri, and you'll be on your back before you finish counting." One warm-up room morning, an older gyoji, kimono patterned like autumn fields, let me hold the dagger tucked into his obi. Ceremonial, yes. Sharp, nonetheless. "Symbol," he said. "If I make an unforgivable mistake, I atone." He smiled to show he wasn't theatrical. Judgment should scare the judge first. I handed it back with both hands. Before my first makuchi match, the yobidashi called, and I walked up the clay slope. The tsuriane roof looked close enough to touch. My opponent, a veteran with a farmer's calm, padded across. We crouched with fists coiled at the shikiri sen. The gyoji planted his fan. "Hakeyoi!" The charge hit like a truck bumper. I found his belt inside. Shitatinage territory, if I could turn my hips. He bore down, trying to pop me up for oshidashi. My spine folded but didn't snap. Toes bit clay. Belly widened. I angled at the bales, used his forward paw to spin him. Small uwatnage, and we tumbled. The judge's fans rose. The room held its breath. The gyoji pointed at me. "Nokota, Nokota," echoed. Backstage, my stablemates clapped my back until I coughed. The oyakata's eyes glimmered once. "Don't forget your legs," he said. "Arms lie. Legs tell the truth." That spring the river monk reappeared. We bowed. "You found wider breath," he said. "I found a ring," I answered, "but I keep falling out of it." "All rings leak," he said. "Come sit sometime." He offered a card with the name of a small Soto temple in Yanaka. The temple sat up a lane lined with stone foxes and persimmons. Inside, 10 people faced a wall. A thin priest with bright, kind eyes greeted me. "I am Jokan," he said. "You are the wrestler." "Rikishi," I corrected, then flushed. He only smiled. "We sit," he said simply. "Just sit." He taught posture, pelvis tilted, crown lifted, eyes open and soft, breath finding its own depth. No koan, no myth, just shikantaza, only sitting. I asked, half joking, "Will this help me win?" "If you sit to win," he said, "you will miss the point. If you sit without a point, you may still win." I took zazen into shikiri. I stopped glancing at the man across from me like a problem and began meeting a force of nature. Thrusts became wind. Grips became tide. The less I reached, the faster my hands found the belt. The press invented things after someone snapped me leaving the temple. Zen sumo, one tabloid declared. A columnist wrote, "I floated like a cloud and struck like a koan." Another called it disrespectful to mix Zen with sumo's Shinto rites. Jokan read and laughed. "We make ourselves too special or too impure," he said. "Brooms still sweep either way. Sit." My rise wasn't smooth. In May, a harit slap turned elbow hyperextended my knee. Tape holds until it doesn't. I went 7 to 8 and tasted a demotion. "Ice and humility," the trainer said. I walked Yanaka's lanes that evening with a mood that could curdle milk. Jokan opened the zendo before I knocked. "Pain is a loud house guest," he said. "Don't serve it tea. Don't throw it out either." Intrigue came sideways. A fixer, not Yakuza, they're easier to see, sidled up to my friend Harada with a message. It would help the stable if I let up in a match to keep a popular senior from demotion. "Everyone helps everyone sometime," the whisper went. I brought it to the Oyakata. He listened in stillness that unnerved me more than any scolding. Finally, "In our house we do not lose on purpose. It corrodes the clay. Be careful. Some people call wind advice. Keep your feet on the ground and your mouth closed." I lost that match cleanly anyway. Caught high and flipped in a tidy uwatanage that rang my skull like a bell. Rumors blossomed like mold. I was grateful for the temple. Sitting didn't make me invulnerable. It made me honest enough to feel shame and relief, and still show up for Keiko the next day. Then September. The yokozuna entered in a white rope thick as a storm cloud, zigzag paper shied, hanging like lightning. Attendants fixed points in his constellation: sword-bearer, tachimochi, dew-sweeper, tsuyuharai. The ceremony said, "I am beyond rank and yet bound by ritual." Facing him felt like a young tree in a typhoon. The tachiai broke like a wave against a bluff. My hands found his belt inside. I dropped weight and let go of the need to be anything but present. He wanted fast. I did not. I angled, ate 2 thunderclap thrusts, tasted copper, stepped to the bales. When he leaned to finish, I twisted, placed my hip, and the big man flew a small graceless circle, landing half in, half out. Judges conferred, a black sleeve lifted. The kinboshi, gold star, was mine. That night rain hammered the Osaka roof like a drum during another bout. The Gyoji's no kota sounded thinner under weather. I won a chest-to-chest and bowed to the north. In the tunnel, my opponent clapped my shoulder. "You surprised me," he said. "Do it again, and I'll crush you." We laughed because we both meant it. In winter I joined a session, a week of walls. We rose at 3:45, sat, then sat again. Legs howled. A senior showed kinhin, slow walking with attention sunk into the soles. In the dining hall, oryoki unfolded. 3 nested bowls, chopsticks placed just so, a spoon like a smooth stone. Verses before each motion. No scrap of rice wasted. Hot water swirled in the last bowl and sipped as a final course. The monk's face when he corrected my clatter, stern then soft, taught there is a speed for every place. I carried that pacing into shikiri, where rushing is panic in a costume. When the press asked how I beat the yokozuna, I told them about feet and breath. They wanted a secret grip. I had only patience and timing. "Careful," Jokan said after zazen. Fame is just another opponent who refuses to leave the dohyō. My shikona, Kaishin, appeared on banners. Kids thrust notebooks for tagata, those inked handprints we sign with a brushstroke. I lined my palm with sumi, pressed, and wrote Haishin with a tremor I tried to hide. I called my mother and told her I'd send money and asked about the mango tree by the porch. Kion, you sound calm, she said. It scares me a little. Me too, I said. Episode 3, Clouds and Water. Ascents in sumo are chutes and ladders. I perched at komusubi through 3 tournaments, facing brutes who taught me that pride weighs more than flesh. Then I slumped and slid down the banzuke like a bead of rain. When the new banzuke unfurled, names carved rather than written, I traced my place with a fingertip and felt proud and impossibly small, a street lamp in a city seen from the sky. Don't stare too long, the oyakata said. The wall doesn't need your eyes. On Jungyo tour we wrestled in gymnasiums and parks, rings raised on temporary platforms. Kids leaned so close the judges waved them back. Old women handed fans painted with Haishin in glittery brushwork. We ate local fish stews and melon slices so perfect I felt shy about chewing. On a bus between towns, Harada asked if I missed football. Sumo is football, I said, but the huddle is a shrine and the snap count is a bell. Then, as a low mega shira, I won a yusho, 15 days like running between raindrops without getting wet. Day 1. A slap, a shove, an oshidashi, before my lungs knew we'd started. Day 3. 2 matter false starts, then a charge that tore skin from my knuckles and left me grinning. Day 7. I let a giant push me where he wanted until the collage of his plans fell apart. A sukuinage later, I bowed and tried not to be pleased. Day 10. Panic fluttered. I sat in the tunnel and counted breath to 10 3 times, lost count twice, smiled at my foolishness, went out and won anyway. Day 15. Belt grip, hips in, pivot at the edge. The left-hand shitatanage that would become my signature because it requires burrowing past noise to find a quiet lever near a stranger's heart. The Emperor's Cup hit my hands before it went to my head. In the interview room, each question wanted a story. Footwork, I kept saying. Breath. They wrote, I was humble. I wasn't humble. I was superstitious about words. The stable threw a party in a sponsor's banquet room with too much gold. Everyone toasted until my name sounded like a bell someone kept striking wrong. Mizuta told the story of the day I arrived and couldn't tie my mawashi. He wanted to knot it like fishing line, he said. Laughter. I raised my glass. I still don't know knots. I only know when to let go. More laughter. Softer. Outside, rain threw itself at the windows. I wanted to walk, be a man moving under nothing. But you don't walk out on men who poured sake for your hunger. Fame tightened around me like a mawashi too snug. Sponsors, interviews, a TV show that wanted me to cook chanko on air. I oversalted. An audience member shouted it tasted like a beach. She meant Hawaii. I chose to hear affection. A children's magazine requested my tagata and a short essay on courage. I wrote, Courage is what you do when the first plan dies. It is mostly about your feet. The editor wanted something cuter. I declined and sent a drawing of a foot. Pain arrived as a bone bruise in my right foot, the ashi that does most of my steering. Pain changed stance. Stance changed fights. Fights changed mood. I snapped at a junior in practice for a lazy grip, and my voice became a man I didn't want to be. After, I sat in the empty locker room, and the quiet watched me. Come to Eiheiji, Jokan said, drawing a triangle on a napkin. Sitting, working, eating. Zen makes most sense if you don't pull the legs apart. You've sat, you've tasted work. Try eating with attention that doesn't wobble. Do one oryoki meal without reaching for a story. You'll be farther than most men in a year of talk. I can't spare the time. You can, he said. I went for 3 days with the Oyakata's permission. Snow corseted the fields. Eiheiji's mountain gate, the Sanman, held 3 spaces like a mouth with wisdom teeth. Inside, corridors creaked with the honesty wood has when it's been walked for centuries. In the Hatodama hall, dragons coiled among beams, the air smelled of cedar and ink. Bells spoke, rather than rang. A tall monk with a calm face introduced himself as Ryonen. He guided slightly behind me, a courtesy that said he trusted me not to wander. He placed me on a cushion. Don't make a project of this, he said. The sentence took up residence in my ribs. At dawn, the zendo smelled of cedar and sleep. In zazen, the silence tasted like the ocean at night. After breakfast, Ryonen asked why I'd come. I described breath and balance. He waited. The words snarled. Finally, I'm good at what I do, I said. I don't know if I want to be good at it anymore. People think monks come here to escape, he said. We come to meet things without weapons. On the train back to Tokyo, snow stitched fields white. I realized the ring wasn't smaller than the monastery. It was a different shape of the same practice. If that was true, then losing and winning were weather, and I was the ground under the mountain. No, not even the ground, just attention itself. I wrestled January with a placid ferocity that startled me. I stopped fixating on men's weight and listened for the moment their breath turned shallow. That's when hips betray. I became known for throws that looked slow until replay revealed my timing. A shittertenage woven at the last inch of clay. A suquinage hinging a man through a narrow window. An elderly gentleman wrote to say I wrestled like a fencer. I took it as a compliment, but success made my dilemma louder. The more the crowds chanted Kaishin, the more days that Eiheiji called me by my given name, soft and in Hawaiian. I began to dream in cedar and bell tones. My coach watched me chew my lip in the locker room. You're halfway in a boat and halfway on shore, he said. What if shore is somewhere else? Boats move, he shrugged. The shore mostly stays put. Decision found me by accident. During practice, a junior, nervous, eager, jumped early, a matter. He slammed my collarbone before my hands had set. The crack sounded like a snapped branch. Not a full break, but enough to sideline me a month and push me out of the next basho. Mornings I iced bone. Afternoons I sat at the temple, where nobody asked about my shoulder, because it isn't the part of me that sits. Some part of me unclenched. I told the Oyakata I would retire at the end of the year. He stared at the floor, then nodded like a man who knows how to be defeated and keep his dignity. Do it cleanly, he said. We will make your danpatsu shiki proper. Before the last tournament, I did one final sanban geiko, repeat bouts with Harada until one of us learned or admitted we couldn't. We backed and filled, grips switching like currents, faces inches apart, clay printing our toes. Finally he caught my belt and moved me. I let him. He knew and grinned. You're already in the mountains, he said, breath sore-edged. Bring back a stone. Episode 4-Eiheiji. My last tournament was in Tokyo. The backstage hall smelled as always. Camphor, sweat, pine, the faint sweetness of new silk. I knew where the boards creaked and where they sang. I went 9-6 and bowed to the crowd, tears hiding in the clarity of my vision. The danpatsu shiki is a river of scissors. Old opponents, classmates, officials, even a pop singer who had sponsored a Chanko night took their snips, each cut symbolic. Nothing dramatic until the last. My Oyakata held the top knot, the mage, in his palm like a small animal. The hall hushed. He cut. Hair makes a single soft sound when it gives way. The weight left my head like a confession. I bowed until the floorboards widened and blurred. Eiheiji received me in early spring as an unsui, a novice whose name is erased and written again. Intake was plain. Black robe, shaved head, with a nick I'd missed. The robe taught my shoulders to stop asking for applause. The registry gave me a name, Jokai, clear sea. The symmetry to Kaishin, sea heart, made us laugh. Later I learned Jokan had engineered it with a twinkle. Names are boats, he said. Use whichever gets you across. Bells at Eiheiji have grammar. A plank bell, han, strikes patterns that call us, don't waste your life, the cadence says if you know how to hear it. The great bell, bonsho, rolls out a syllable so long it seems to start before it's struck. The wooden fish drum, mokugyo, leads chanting with a hollow heartbeat. After a month, I could tell time by tone. We woke before the first smear of light, zazen while mist pooled in cedar hollows, morning service in the Hatto, where Dogen's presence is not history, but atmosphere. Oryoki breakfast, rice, soup, pickles, eaten in silence while hands move like calligraphy. Samu, sweeping stone steps with brooms that look too soft to move dirt until you let the broom do the work. Midday, zazen, study, fukanza zengi, Dogen's instructions for universal sitting. Genjokoan, the precepts. Evening chants, sleep that arrived like mercy. The keisaku, the encouragement stick, took me a while. A monitor approached from behind. I nodded. 2 clean strikes across the shoulders. Punctuation, not punishment. The sting crested and faded, leaving attention where complaint had been. Not asceticism, Ryonin said. Information. A rotation in the kitchen put me under the tenzo, head cook, who handed me Dogen's tenzo kyokan and told me to treat rice as if it were my own eyes. We washed, sifted, measured. I learned to make miso soup that tasted like it remembered the field the soybeans came from. Serving bowls, I moved with the care of a man carrying his sleeping child. This is our tournament, the tenzo said. Win by not dropping anything. Every corridor polished, every step swept. We cleaned with rags so thin you could read poetry through them. A senior told me the story of 2 monks who fought over a dirty sill. They were both wrong, he said. They should have been wiping. I took the rag as a lesson plan. We studied fukanza zengi. Lines landed like stones in a deep well. Think of not thinking. How? Non-thinking. Not a trick sentence. An exact pointer to a posture of mind. I copied the characters slowly with a shaky brush, folded the sheet, put it in my sleeve. During evening sitting, the words lifted and lost their edges like a mountain in fog. Still there, not a thing to grab. Visitors came, pilgrims, tourists. 2 sekitori from Midorikawa Bay arrived one day, elegant in suits, hands too big for briefcases. We drank tea as if it were beer and sanded the edges off our stories. Do you miss the noise? One asked. Sometimes the quiet is louder, I said. It gets inside more places. We walked the covered corridor to the sanmon. They bowed before stepping under it without knowing why. That's enough, I thought. The mountain keeps its own attendants. A group of schoolchildren toured. A boy recognized me, even without hair or silk. Kaishin-san? He asked, eyes wide. I'm Jokai here, I said. You were strong. I was big, I said. Strength is something else. Which is stronger, sumo or meditation? When you're doing one, there's no other, I said. In the ring, there's only the ring. Sitting, there's only sitting. If you can stay with one thing, that's strong. Will you wrestle again? Every day, I said, tapping my chest. Just here. He later sent a letter in big square characters. Dear Jokai, I tried the foot thing. My father pushed me, and I didn't fall. He fell. Is this Zen? I wrote back, it is feet. Zen is noticing your father's face when he falls and not laughing unless he laughs first. He replied with a drawing of 2 stick figures smiling on a circle labeled dohyō. The Tenzo snorted tea when I showed him. Seasons turned. Spring cedars smell like a toolbox left open in sun. Summer brings insects that sing like wires. Autumn paints maples so bright they look plugged into something. Winter is a stern teacher with gentle hands. We entered Ango, an intensive practice period, and my knees filed complaints. A monk older than the stairs showed me to roll a towel and wedge it under my sit bones. The angle changed. Pain became information again. "Nothing here is torture," he said. "If you think it is, you're doing it wrong." Rohatsu, the week in December commemorating the Buddha's awakening, meant longer sits. Stars spun like slow screws. The Mokugyo's hollow beat led the Heart Sutra. Voices pooled and thinned. Around 2 a.m., my mind tried to break the lock. "What are you doing?" "You had a job. Adulation, envelopes, lights." Thoughts were wet dogs shaking on a porch. I kept sitting. Then a sense arrived and dissolved in the same instant. "You have been preparing to stop preparing." Not a revelation to admire. It didn't change my posture even a little. Dawn poured through the paper doors like a ceremony nobody scheduled. I wasn't enlightened. I was untroubled by the idea I should be. A lay visitor cornered me on the veranda. "What's the secret of deep meditation?" His eyes bright, as if I might hand him a jewel. "Arrive," I said, "then stop negotiating." He waited for more. When none came, he seemed disappointed, then oddly relieved. "That sounds doable." "It is," I said, "until it isn't." "Then you do it anyway." The Oyakata visited in spring, arriving without fuss in a dark suit that still hung like authority. We bowed long, then walked the cloister. He watched a line of unsui move like a river. "You're not the biggest man here," he said. "No," I said. "It's a relief." "You used to be tense here." He poked the spot between my shoulder blades. "Now you're tense here." He tapped my chest lightly and laughed, the most affection he'd ever shown. "You made the right mess," he added. "Most men make messy wrong." We ate barley rice in the guest hall. "You eat like this every day?" he asked, frowning at the plainness. "Every day." "You became hard to impress," he said, not unkindly. On a rest day, I walked to the stream beyond the lower field. Water's voice climbed the stones. I cupped my hands, drank, tasted something like paddling out at Maili at dawn. The Pacific wasn't here, but the lesson was stance, breath, rhythm. The ring made a monk of me before the monastery did. The monastery keeps making a wrestler of me now that I've stopped needing to win. On the anniversary of my arrival, Ryonen asked me to lead evening fuguin chanting. My voice carried more honesty than tone. Afterward, he nodded. "Teach cooking next month," he said. "Not because you're good, because you care." I bowed, hands forming the sparrow again. "Hi." "Also," he said, "a boy from Hawaii wants to visit." "Send him," I answered. "We have brooms." Years pass like the shadow of a bird on a field. I remain at Eiheiji, not because I hid from the world, but because I haven't found the end of sitting. Fans sometimes send letters that find me in these mountains. Old opponents visit. We drink tea and remember clay under toes, and the Yobidashi's chant rising like steam. A boy from the countryside with shoulders like boulders writes to ask if I can help him get into a stable. I send a note to a friend in Ryogoku, and a paragraph to the boy. It is hard. It is good. Let both be true. On the anniversary of my Danpatsu Shiki, I take the bundle of hair from a small box and bow, not to a relic or a ghost, but to a life that carried me here. I walk to the zendo. The bell sounds. I sit. I breathe. I wait for nothing. The ring is smaller than the mountain, and the mountain is smaller than the breath, and the breath is smaller than the silence that holds it. There is no end, only a deeper entrance. When wind moves through the cedars, They sound like a stadium that has just learned to whisper. I don't miss the roar. I hear it in the leaves.